Hello, and welcome to our first video for Henry IV, Part 1. We're going to actually read the play together. This is what I'm thinking we'll do. This is what I'm trying for this week, and if it goes well, I'll continue it. If not, if you have feedback you want to give me, we can try a different format as well. But what I thought would be easiest is rather than having you read the play by yourself, we'll listen and read it together in these videos. So you just have to watch the videos that I post, in which we're going to listen to the audiobook and I can pause it and talk to you right away about what's important, the things you have to know. That way you don't have to read it by yourself and then watch a ton of videos afterwards. You just get it done in one video, okay? You will have noticed that my face is not in the screen for these videos. That's because I'm popping in and out of a bunch of different tabs, and this is just going to make it easier for me to manage. So I'm hoping this format goes well. We'll see. We're trying it out. Okay, so before we start Act 1, Scene 1, we're going to read essentially the summary of what we're about to read. Okay, so we're going to do this before every single scene. So Act 1, Scene 1 is taking place in England with King Henry and his allies. So, in the Royal Palace of London, King Henry IV of England speaks with his counselors. Worn out by the recent civil wars that has racked his country, Henry looks forward to a project he has been planning for a long time, joining the Crusades. He plans to lead a military expedition to Jerusalem, the Holy Land, to join in the battle between the Islamic people who currently occupy it and the European armies who are trying to seize it for the sake of Christianity. Now, if you're freaking out, thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I know nothing about the Crusades, that's fine. You don't have to. This is the only mention of it in the play. It's nothing but a dream of King Henry to join the Crusades. He doesn't actually get to do it. Okay? When the summary is saying that he's worn out by the recent civil wars that have racked his country, what civil wars are they talking about? If you watched the introduction video that I created, you'll know that it's talking about the war in which King Henry IV actually started so that he could take the throne from King Richard II. Okay, so that's the civil war that this is talking about. That's the civil war that has worn out King Henry, and it's worn out England. They've been fighting for years, and finally, now that King Henry is on the throne, he feels like they've achieved some sort of peace. However, news from two separate borders of Henry's kingdom almost immediately change his plans, so this is going to be why he can't go and do his crusades. Skirmishes have broken out between the English forces on one side and Scottish and Welsh rebels on the other. The king's trusted advisor, the Earl of Westmoreland, relays the bad news that Edmund Mortimer, so Mortimer is going to be a really important character, an English military leader, has lost a battle against a band of guerrilla fighters in Wales, who are led by the powerful and mysterious Welsh rebel Owen Glendower. Glendower has captured Mortimer and the rebels and has slaughtered 1,000 of Mortimer's soldiers. Moreover, the Welsh women, following their traditions, have mutilated the soldiers' corpses. So, just as King Henry is musing on the potential of him joining the Crusades, someone comes in with news saying that, Mortimer, your general, has just lost a huge battle against Owen of Glendower, and he's been taken captive. Okay, so Mortimer is captive by the Welsh. That's what you need to know there. And then from the other English border, Westmoreland adds, Westmoreland is just the messenger who comes in to deliver this news. He has just received information that Harry Percy, nicknamed Hotspur, so in the play, he's mostly going to be referred to as Hotspur, another one of the king's best military men, is currently engaged in heated battle with Archibald, also known as Douglas, the leader of the large band of Scottish rebels. King Henry has been previously told about this development, it turns out, and already possesses an update about the outcome. Young Hotspur has defeated Douglas and his army and has taken prisoner several important figures among the Scotsmen, including Douglas's own son, Mordred, the Earl of Fife. King Henry is pleased at the news and cannot help comparing Hotspur's achievement with the idleness of his son, Prince Harry. Harry is the same age as Hotspur, but he has not won any military glory. Indeed, Harry's dishonorable behavior makes King Henry ashamed. He wishes that Hotspur were his son instead. And at this point, we don't know exactly what Hal is doing to make his father so ashamed, but we do know that he sure as heck is not winning any battles like Hotspur is. So, actually, I'm going to see if my nifty pen will work. I've waited a month and a half for this pen, hoping that I could annotate on screen for you guys. And it looks like it's actually a useless piece of garbage, so give me a second. Ooh, there we go, there we go. Okay. We'll see how my drawings work. So essentially, what you need to know is that there's England. England is our star. Oh man, this is garbage. Okay, we have England, we have King Henry, who's our star. Mortimer and Hotspur at this point are fighting for him. Oh, Lord. I promise I'll get better at this. I've completed my excellent drawing. That is supposed to help you understand what's happening, but I apologize if it confuses you more. So all I wanted to get across was we have England with Mortimer and Hotspur, who are at this point still English allies. They're Englishmen, okay? The M is for Mortimer, the H is for Hotspur. But England has its enemies, Scotland and the Welsh. So Scotland and Wales, okay? Wales at this point in time has captured Mortimer. So our M will go over there as well. Alright? That's really all that's happening, okay? I probably didn't need to do that drawing. Continuing on. Hotspur, however, is behaving very strangely. He has sent word to King Henry that he plans to send only one of his prisoners to the king and retain the rest. So, oh awesome, my drawing disappeared. That's excellent. Great, and it's not coming back. Okay, so Hotspur has just won a battle against the Scottishmen. And what you would do during these days, if you won a battle for your king, you would have to send your prisoners back to the king to show your alliance, to show your allegiance to the king. But Hotspur has just won a battle against the Scottishmen and isn't sending his prisoners back to King Henry. He's keeping them. This action flouts, oh my word. This action flouts standard procedure, and the king has an automatic right to all noble prisoners captured in battle. Westmoreland suggests that Hotspur's rebellious act comes at the prompting of his uncle, the Earl of Worcester, who is known to be hostile to the king. The angered Henry concurs and says that he has sent for Hotspur, demanding that he come and explain himself. Henry decides that the crusade projects will have to be put off and that he will hold court the next Wednesday at Windsor Castle to hear what Hotspur has to say. All right, so this is what we are about to read. Let us now engage in our text. So if you guys open up your version of the text, which I've linked on Canvas, I'm using the exact same version for you. We're going to listen to our audiobook.
Henry IV, Part 1, by William Shakespeare.
of day is it, lad?
Oh, Sir John.
Off to a great start. That is not what I want. It turns out the audiobook skips the entire section of the king's first speech, so I'm just going to read this, and then we're going to get into where Westmoreland starts talking. I don't know why they skip all this. Honestly, probably because it's basically useless information. But we're going to read it anyway. Okay. So shaken as we are, so wan with care, find we a time for frightened peace to pant, and breathe short-winded accents of new broils to be commenced in strands of far remote. No more the thirsty entrance of this soil shall dab her lips with her own children's blood. No more shall trenching war channel her fields, nor bruise her flowerets with the armed hoofs of hostile paces, those opposed eyes, which, like the meteors of a troubled heaven, all of one nature, of one substance bred, did lately meet in the intestine shock and furious close of civil butchery, shall now in mutual well beseeming ranks march all one way, and be no more opposed against acquaintance, kindred, and allies. The edge of war, like an ill-sheathed knife, no more shall cut his master. So all the king is talking about here, like we talked about in the summary, he's just talking about how finally England is at peace. It's not at peach. It's at peace. March all one way, and be no more opposed against acquaintance, kindred, and allies. The edge of war, like an ill-sheathed knife, no more shall cut its master. It's just saying that finally we are all marching in one way. We are all like-minded. There is no more civil war. No more shall the thirsty entrance of this soil dab her lips with her own children's blood. The soil is speaking to England. Her own children's blood is obviously speaking to the English people. So he's just saying, finally, there's no more war. There's no more bloodshed. We are all of one mind. Now we can engage in other things. March all one way, and be no more opposed against acquaintance, kindred, and allies. The edge of war, like an ill-sheathed knife, no more shall cut his master. Therefore, friends, as far as to the sepulchre of Christ, whose soldiers now, under whose blessed cross we are impressed and engaged to fight, forthwith a power of English shall we levy, whose arms were molded in their mother's womb to chase these pagans in those holy fields. Here he's talking about wanting to go to Jerusalem to engage in the Crusades, to chase out the pagans and regain the Holy Land for Christ. Over whose acres walked those blessed feet, which 1400 years ago were nailed for our advantage on the bitter cross. But this our purpose now is 12-month old, and bootless 'tis to tell you we will go. Therefore we meet not now. Let me hear of you, my gentle cousin Westmoreland, what yesternight our council did decree in forwarding this dear experience. So the king has brought forth his desire to participate in the Crusades to the council, and now he's saying, listen, or tell me, cousin Westmoreland, what did the council say? Did they agree that we should go to Jerusalem to engage in the Crusades? And here, you can stop listening to me read it. We're going to listen to the audiobook.
Of English shall we levy, whose arms were moulded in their mother's womb to chase these pagans in those holy fields.
My liege, a post from Wales, laden with heavy news, whose worst was that the noble Mortimer, leading the men of Herefordshire to fight against the irregular and wild Glendower, was by the rude hands of that Welshman taken, 1,000 of his people butchered, upon whose dead corpse there was such misuse, such beastly shameless transformation by those Welshwomen done as may not be without much shame retold or spoken of.
It seems then that the tidings of this broil break off our business for the Holy Land.
So right there, that's just where he's saying, oh darn, Again, we have civil unrest. I guess we're not going to the Holy Land. Done. No more about the Crusades, okay? You don't have to worry about it anymore.
This matched with other did, my gracious lord. For more uneven and unwelcome news came from the north, and thus it did import. On Holyrood Day, the gallant Hotspur there, young Harry Percy, and the brave Douglas, that ever valiant and approved Scot, at Holmdon met, where they did spend a sad and bloody hour. As by discharge of their artillery and shape of likelihood the news was told, for he that brought them in the very heat and pride of their contention did take horse, uncertain of the issue anyway.
All right, and I'm not going to be pausing while we read as often as I am in these few introduction videos, but just to help you guys get used to the way in which Shakespeare writes, here he's clearly speaking of Harry Percy and the brave Archibald, also known as Douglas, the Scot who just engaged in battle, where they did spend a sad and bloody hour, as by discharge of their artillery and shape of likelihood the news was told. For he that brought them in the very heat and pride of their contention did take horse, uncertain of the issue. Just saying here that obviously Harry Percy, Hotspur, and Douglas have been in a bloody battle, and the shape of likelihood the news was told, for he that brought them is the guy who's bringing the news about the battle, so he's talking about the messenger. He's just saying, in the very heat and pride of their contention did take horse, saying that the messenger who brought me this news of the battle left at its height. He left when things were just getting heated, so he couldn't say for sure who won, uncertain of the issue anyway. Okay, so Westmoreland is bringing him news about the battle between Hotspur and Douglas, but he doesn't know yet who actually won.
Here is a dear, a true, industrious friend, Sir Walter Blunt, new lighted from his horse, and he hath brought us smooth and welcome news. The Earl of Douglas is discomfited. 10,000 bold Scots, 22 knights, balked in their own blood, did Sir Walter see on Holmdon plains. Of prisoners, Hotspur took Mordaig, the Earl of Fife, and eldest son to beaten Douglas, and the Earls of Athol, of Murray, Angus, and Menteith. And is not this an honourable spoil, a gallant prize, our cousin, is it not?
In faith, it is a conquest for a prince to boast of.
Yea. There, thou makest me sad, and makest me sin in envy that my lord Northumberland should be the father to so blessed a son who was the theme of honour's tongue, amongst a grove the very straightest plant, who was sweet Fortune's minion and her bride, whilst I, by looking on the praise of him, see riot and dishonour stain the brow of my young Harry. Oh, that it could be proved that some night-tripping fairy had exchanged in cradle clothes our children where they lay, and called mine, Percy, his Plantagenet. Then would...
So here we realize, or we find out that King Henry has actually received more news than Westmoreland, and knows that actually Harry Percy defeated the Earl of Douglas and took a bunch of prisoners, and then Westmoreland says, wow, what a conquest. It's a conquest for a prince to boast of. So they're all praising Harry Percy for his valiant efforts, and then King Henry goes into his thoughts and starts thinking, wow, this makes me jealous of Northumberland, Lord Northumberland, who is Harry Percy's father, should be the father to so blessed a son who's the theme of honor's tongue. And who's the son he's talking about? He's talking about Harry Percy. He's talking about Hotspur. He says, whilst I, by looking on the praise of him, see riot and dishonor stain the brow of my young Harry. So he's saying that here I have to listen to all these incredible things that Hotspur is doing, and all it does is remind me of how crappy my own son is. Oh, that it could be proved that some night-tripping fairy had exchanged in cradle's clothes our children where they lay. And here he's going to the extent to say, dang it, I just wish that I could prove that someone had switched our babies at birth, and that Hotspur was actually my son, and that Hal was Lord Northumberland's son. So here we're just seeing for the first time how ashamed King Henry is of Harry, of his own son.
But I have his Harry, and he mine. Oh, but let him from my thoughts. What think you, coz, of this young Percy's pride? The prisoners, which he, in this adventure, hath surprised to his own use he keeps, and sends me word I shall have none but Mordache, Earl of Fife.
This is his uncle's teaching. This is Worcester, malevolent to you in all aspects, which makes him prune himself and bristle up the crest of youth against your dignity.
Well, we will send for him to answer this.
And they're not going to end it. And for this cause a while we must neglect our holy purpose to Jerusalem. Cousin, on Wednesday next our council we will hold at Windsor to so inform the lords. But come yourself with speed to us again, for more is to be said and to be done than out of anger can be uttered. I will, my liege. So he's saying, bring Hotspur to me so that he can explain why he's only giving me the moral Earl of Fife as a prisoner rather than all of the Scottish men that he overtook. Okay? And that's it. That's Act 1, Scene 1. Not a ton is happening. Actually, in terms of plot, not a ton has happened yet, but the important things here is that, 1, we know that Mortimer has lost a battle to the Welsh and has been captured. 2, we know that Hotspur has defeated the Scottish, Douglas, but will not send his prisoners to the king. He's only giving him 1 prisoner. And then thirdly, we see how much disdain King Henry has for his own son, Prince Hal, who at this point we haven't even met yet. So we don't know why he hates his son so much. So we're going to go over the questions for Scene 1. So feel free to jot these down on your own document. So question 1 asks us, in the king's opening speech, he remarks, "Those opposed eyes, which did lately meet in the intestine shock, and furious close of civil butchery, will no longer spill English blood on English soil," refers to the recent power struggle between various English nobles. These comments refer to historical events that Shakespeare would have expected his audience to know. What are they? And this is what we touched on in the introduction video. So the audience is expected to know that Henry overthrew his predecessor, Richard II, and that there were civil rebellions uprising all the time. As king, Henry IV would have had to been constantly on guard for plots to overthrow him. This was just the reality of being a king during this time. Your position was not necessarily safe, hence why Richard II was overthrown. Number 2, Henry has a vague sense of guilt and unease about the legitimacy of his claim to power. Why does he feel this way? Well, he feels this way because he had to kill his cousin to lay claim to the throne. He feels badly about the blood on his hands. He knows the throne shouldn't actually be his. Therefore, he does feel a little guilty, and he feels as though he constantly has to maintain his power rather than just feel at ease in the position of king. Number 3. What does Henry mean when he says he is won with care? How would you phrase that using a modern idiom? Henry means that he is worn out from so many trials and keeping on top of everything. An equivalent today would be to say that you're pale with worry, wan with care, wan essentially meaning that you're just worn out with care. He's exhausted at having to keep on top of everything. Number 4. King Henry expresses regret that Hotspur is not his own son. What does he say to show this? And why does he wish this? So we talked about this already. Henry says, "Yea, there thou makest me sad and makest me sin in envy that my Lord Northumberland should be the father to so blessed a son." a son who is the theme of honor's tongue, among a grove the very straightest plant, who is sweet fortune's minion and her pride. Whilst I, by looking on the praise of him, see riot and dishonor stain the brow of my young Harry. Oh, that it could be proved that some night-tripping fairy had exchanged in cradle's clothes our children where they lay, and called mine Percy, his Plantagenet. So he wishes this because he feels that the people of England don't find him worthy of the crown, and the way his son behaves will fuel their thoughts. So again, he's won with care for having to constantly sort of redeem himself as king, and to have a son who's behaving so poorly is not going to help people think highly of you. So Hotspur comports himself with honor and dignity, whereas Harry often behaves in an embarrassing fashion. This quote is important because it foreshadows the rivalry between Hotspur and Hal. What expectations does King Henry reveal that he has for Hal? Well, King Henry reveals that he expects Hal to be responsible, to be a man of honor, to earn the respect of the English, to be reliable. Essentially, he says that he wants him to be Hotspur. He wants him to be everything that Hotspur already is. What is unusual about the way Hotspur is dealing with his prisoners? We touched on this one. Typically, prisoners would be sent to the king. Hotspur, however, is only sending one of the prisoners to the king, and he's keeping the rest for himself. The king and his advisors make a guess that Hotspur's uncle is encouraging him to break these rules. And with what do the English associate Owen Glendower? This is not something you can... They allude to it a little bit in scene 1, but it's not something you would necessarily know unless you were Shakespeare's audience at the time. But the Welsh were associated with having this sort of dark magic. So Owen Glendower in this play, they associate him with the native dark sorcery of Wales, and they think of him as a magician. This is going to play out a little bit more as we continue reading. Okay, so again, the big ones here are just knowing why King Henry is so embarrassed of Hal, because he doesn't feel secure as king, as he should. He shouldn't feel secure as king, okay, because he did take the throne from his cousin, so he knows that it could easily be taken from him. So really, what King Henry wants is for everything to be perfect. So to have an embarrassing son reflects really poorly on him. So obviously that's going to cause him more anxiety. And then really too, what's important is just the foreshadowing towards the rivalry between Hotspur and Hal. Already they're being compared to one another. And that's it. That's our Act 1, Scene 1. This sets us up for the rest of the play. If you have any questions, I know that this isn't great quality here for you to see the answers, so I'm going to try to make it better for the next video, but hopefully you can at least make out the answers for yourself. All right, see you very soon.